House Bill 2310. Philip.
Madam Chair, members, House Bill 2310 permits a pharmacist to substitute a biological product for a prescribed biological product if certain conditions are met, including FDA determination that the substituted product is an interchangeable biological product, that the pharmacy retains a record of the biological product dispensed, and within 5 business days of dispensing, an entry is made of the specified product provided to the patient. The bill requires communication from a dispensing pharmacist to the prescriber via an electronically accessible entry or direct communication to the prescriber, unless there is no interchangeable biological product for the product prescribed or a refill prescription is not changed from the product dispensed on the prior filling. Finally, the bill requires the Board of Pharmacy to maintain on its website a list of FDA-approved interchangeable biological products. Madam Chair, there is one amendment I can explain.
Yes, please proceed.
The 4-line amendment in the Chair's name dated March 8th, 2016 delays the effective date to January 1, 2017. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Members, do you have questions for Philip? All right. I'll welcome the sponsor to the podium, Representative Cobb.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and committee members. Thank you for allowing us to hear this bill today. For the record, Regina Cobb, State Representative, District 5. This bill just pretty much allows exactly what he said, the interchangeable biologics to be changed for a biological. And just, I'm not going to get into the weeds of what the actual details are because we have a few real experts here that can tell you a lot more about the biologics. But a biologic is made by a living organism. And synthetics are manufactured within a pharmaceutical company. And the outcomes of a synthetic is what we consider and can be tested, and so you can substitute a synthetic medication for a generic, and that's what we call generics. And those can be tested at the end and know that the outcomes are going to be exactly the same. They have exactly the same chemical formulation. But with a biologic, because it's a living organism, you cannot do an interchangeable biologic and have the same outcomes as far as testing in a laboratory. So how they test them, they have a higher sense of what we need to do in the outcomes, and that's how you test those. So the interchangeable biologics sometimes can react with someone's body differently than another. So as a physician or as a healthcare provider, I would like it to be told to me that I have an interchangeable biologic, and that way I would know if the outcome is different, then I know that the patient needs to go back to the original biologic, the one that was made to begin with. The whole reason for the interchangeable biologics is to be able to get a more cost-effective medication for the patient. And thank you, Senator Barto, so much for having sponsored our amendment that extends it out till the end of the year, and that way we can allow our pharmacies and we won't burden them with trying to get up to speed on trying to get the communication piece out to the doctors. And I appreciate that. And if the committee has any questions, I'm available for it.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor? All right, we'll start with Dr. Thomas Felix. Welcome to committee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Health Committee. My name is Dr. Thomas Felix. I'm a Research and Development Policy Director with Amgen. I'm based out of Washington, D.C. Amgen's a company that's been around for over 35 years, a pioneer in biotechnology, and we've decided a few years ago to put all of that know-how in protein science and try to develop 9 biosimilars. So we are a company that has been around, that has products that are coming off patent, that other companies are going to create biosimilars of, and at the same time we are creating biosimilars of other companies' products. So we're in an interesting place in the middle of the road, balancing both perspectives. We are here also because we are strongly in support of House Bill 2310. This is a bill that will provide access to lower cost alternatives. Biologic drugs are expensive, and these biosimilars will be lower cost as compared to their reference product. And this is also going to bring to the state of Arizona cost savings for your healthcare spend. I do want to just remind you that the bill that sits before you has been modeled after your generic substitution laws. So right now in the state of Arizona, generic drugs can be substituted. And so we've largely followed many of the provisions that are in that existing generic substitution practice with a major deviation, and that's the one that the bill sponsor had informed you about, which is notification to the physician, communication to the physician. Before I actually dive into why we need a separate legislation for these biosimilar products, I do want to support the idea that around the world there have been separate legal and regulatory pathways for approval of traditional pharmaceuticals that are, if we want to think about it today, let's think about them in terms of tablet drugs. And what we're now talking about for this bill, which is biologic drugs and biosimilars, which we can think about as almost always injectable, right? So the differences just don't lie in those two examples. When we actually think about how these products are made, a tablet drug is made through a synthetic process, a series of chemical reactions. When you think of how a biologic drug is made, it is made by harnessing the power of a cell and programming that cell, and then extracting the protein that you've asked it to make and using that as your therapeutic. And you might use it in cancer. You might use it in an autoimmune condition like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, maybe even inflammatory bowel disease. But these are all for grievous illnesses. These are not sort of mild illnesses. These are grievous illnesses, often chronic. And so I just wanted to also just underscore, I'm not going to get too much into the science, I promise you. I don't want to lose you. But let me give you a small example of the differences that do exist between a traditional tablet drug pharmaceutical and a biologic. So if you were to put an aspirin molecule on a special weight scale and measure what the weight would be, it would weigh 180 Daltons. And for your own purposes, convert that unit of measure for a molecular weight into something that you can understand, like a pound. So it would weigh 180 Daltons. If you were to take a very common biologic, like a monoclonal antibody, and put it on a scale, it would weigh 150,000 Daltons. And so not only are we talking about a 800 to 1,000 time larger difference in terms of the weight, the actual structures of these molecules are more complex. And that's what really is the challenge for us as biosimilar developers, to try to develop something that is highly similar to something that's already existent in the marketplace. So hopefully that underscores the differences in the science. I also want to draw your attention to the federal law that passed in 2010. As part of the Affordable Care Act, there was a portion of the act that actually had bipartisan support. And it essentially has taken all of this time to have our first biosimilar approved last year in 2015. About a month ago, there was a healthcare hearing on the Hill. Janet Woodcock from the FDA signaled that we can expect an approval of an interchangeable biosimilar prior to the release of an interchangeability guidance. I think that's very important, especially as I heard the information about the potential amendment. The amendment is going to start in January of 2017. I would be a little concerned if all of a sudden before that time we did have an interchangeable product in the marketplace and essentially weren't ready for it in the state of Arizona. It's a suggestion. It's a suggestion to potentially amend the amendment to state by January 1st, 2017, or the entry of an interchangeable biosimilar so that you're ready for whichever one happens first. That would seem to make sure that you're taking care of the patients of the state of Arizona in either case. And the importance in terms of the deviation from generic substitution law that exists in the state of Arizona is the importance of communicating between a healthcare team. At this time, we have national priorities in health information technology that are trying to promote connections between pharmacists, physicians, nurses, other members of the healthcare team. And I can tell you that I serve on representing Amgen on a pharmacy health information technology collaborative. And we are trying to create ways to connect physicians and pharmacists together so that they can seamlessly treat patients, dispense medications. So I just wanted to underscore that this is a national priority. It's been something that people are focused on. Right here in the state of Arizona, there is a standards body called NCPDP that has just introduced a new HIT standard to try to increase communication specifically for this purpose, to connect existing systems so that they can talk to one another.
Okay.
So with that, I just wanted to open it up for any questions that you might have, and thank you for
Thank you,
hearing me
Doctor.
out.
Members, are there any questions? Thank you very much. Dr. Dan Remen? And then we'll hear from Gina Klosterman after that. Welcome to committee, Doctor.
Thank you.
Are you a doctor? Sorry.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Madam Chairman and members of the Committee on Health and Human Services. I'm Dr. Daniel Remen, a retired anesthesiologist who practiced medicine in Arizona for the last 40 years. I'm testifying today on behalf of the Physicians Advisory Council of ICAN, the International Cancer Advocacy Network. ICAN is a Phoenix-based nonprofit that helps late-stage cancer patients throughout Arizona, the United States, and the world. On behalf of the thousands of patients ICAN has served and will be serving in the future, we strongly support HB2310, authored by Representative Cobb, to require that pharmacists notify physicians when substituting an interchangeable biological product or biosimilar for the prescribed biologic. This is to protect patient safety. It is simple common sense. I cannot imagine a situation where I, as a physician, would not know that another drug had been substituted for a drug I prescribed. Each physician must know at all times what drug a patient has received, so that if there are any side effects, we can deal with the situation at the earliest possible moment. To delay is to risk patient health, and it is simply unacceptable. Madam Chairman and members of the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services, we urge you to favorably consider HB 2310 and ensure its ultimate passage into law to protect Arizona patients.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, are there any questions for Dr. Remen? Appreciate it. Gina Klosterman? Welcome to committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm here today representing the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America, the Southwest chapter. They are very favorably in favor of this HB 2310 bill. There are now new biosimilars in the process to be approved in 2016. Crohn's and colitis are collectively known as inflammatory bowel disease, also known as IBD. These biosimilars are very exciting and encouraging because they will offer more treatment options for patients and also more flexibility for patients and providers. As policies on biosimilars are crafted, it is so important to make patient safety paramount and that the provider and the patient relationship be deemed a priority. as policies, the communication aspect of HB2310 is just very important because it allows for the transparency between the pharmacy, the prescribing provider, and the patient. It is very important to remember that the research behind these biosimilars and interchangeability is still evolving. It's new. We don't know 20 years, 30 years down the road what the outcomes are going to be. For that reason, it is important to keep detailed records of these new drugs. I also stand before you today as a parent of a daughter diagnosed with ulcerative colitis 8 years ago when she was 10. When she was diagnosed very quickly but had a severe case of it. At the time, there was only one biologic available to the ulcerative colitis patients. There were 2 to 3 that were available for the Crohn's patients. My daughter failed on that one biologic, and unfortunately, 6 months after her diagnosis, she had to have her entire colon removed. So now she deals with the life-altering consequences of living without her colon. To know that there are new options becoming available for patients is very encouraging. While it's too late for my daughter to benefit from these new biosimilars options, they could potentially change the outcome for IBD patients. As a parent, I cannot stress enough how important it is to have policies in place regarding communication for continuity of care. The doctors and patients deserve to know exactly what medication is being dispensed. We are all entitled to have a complete medical record. So without the communication aspect of this bill, one is left with an incomplete medical record. Please think of what you would expect for yourself, your children, or your grandchildren when it comes to the importance of having a complete medical record, an accurate record, so that you're ensured getting the best possible medical care. I understand that the opposition, especially to the communication part of this HB 2310, is that requiring the pharmacist to the communication part, requiring the pharmacist to keep detailed records of what they are dispensing and having to communicate that a biosimilar has been substituted for the biologic, that this will cause undue burden and increased workload. Please understand that we are only talking about 2% of the medications being dispensed. Also, these biologic and biosimilars are coming from specialty pharmacies, not your local chain pharmacies such as a Walker or your local grocery store pharmacy. So the communication and record keeping of these new biosimilars are not going to be erroneous for pharmacists or the specialty pharmacies. Today, everything is done electronically, so once recorded, it can be sent and shared very easily and very quickly. So in closing, as a representative of CCFA and as a parent with a daughter with IBD, I have helped you to realize how important the communication aspect of HB 2310 is. It's just as important as the new possibilities these new biosimilars present. Thank you very much for your time and your attention today. Did you have any questions?
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? All right. Joan Koerber-Walker. There she is in the Free the Grapes color.
We match.
Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Joan Koerber-Walker. I am employed as the president and CEO of the Arizona Bioindustry Association, and I am also the mother of a Crohn's patient whose life was changed by biologics, and hopefully in the future will be able to take advantage of interchangeable biologics. So you've heard testimony today from esteemed medical professionals, physicians, and researchers. From Dr. Cobb's leadership in bringing this forward, Dr. Felix, Dr. Remen, and Gina, that was a phenomenal piece of testimony. When we look at these, since 2010, when biosimilars first became a matter of national discussion, and the work that's been done at the FDA in Washington, D.C., the work that's been done in Congress, what continues to be done at the FDA as we start to look for and look forward to additional biosimilars, these will bring new benefits to patients, to the hospital systems, and equally important to our healthcare costs. As we look at these drugs going forward, we have tremendous potential. Also, as you heard Gina talk about, there was only one possible biologic for her daughter at that time. One of the things that we anticipate, but we don't know, is because biosimilars, biologics, are derived from living cells, and every cell is just a little bit different, that there could be just a very, very slight deviation in these new drugs that are coming to market. What that means is that when a patient like my son Christopher stops responding to the medicine he's on today, a biosimilar or an interchangeable biosimilar might be just different enough that he will respond to that. That drug, that biologic that he went on now 5 years ago, not only prevented him from having the type of consequences that Gina's daughter did, but it allowed him to be a productive member of our Arizona economy, running a business, marrying, buying a home. And if those of you that have seen the AZBio ads and commercials, having the AZBio baby. So we know the miracles that these drugs can provide. When we look at the importance of letting a doctor know, because we said it could be just a little bit different. Since 2011, I've had conversations with hundreds of doctors, patients, hospital groups. What they have told us is that slight deviation, okay, is critically important because they look at every outcome a patient has and every trigger that may show that they're improving or going backwards. And so if the doctor doesn't know that a variable has changed, we could incur massive testing and healthcare costs while the doctor tries to figure out what was different. So the communication path creates a complete medical record, but equally important, it ensures that our doctors have the tools they need to properly give the best possible patient care. And with that, I would conclude my remarks, and Madam Chair, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Joan. Members, do you have any questions for Joan Koerber-Walker? All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Members, would you like to hear from any of the others who have signed in to speak if necessary? Diane McAllister.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Diane McAllister, and I'm here on behalf of Express Scripts. I wanted to clarify that we appreciate all of the work that both sides have done on this bill, and we've come to an agreement with the amendment that's being offered today with a 6-month delay, and appreciate the opposition coming together and getting to a place where they can be neutral on this bill.
Thank you. Members, any questions? All right. Senator Yee, would you mind making the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move House Bill 2310 receive a due pass recommendation. I further move the 4-line amendment in Senator Barto's name dated 3/8/16 at 2 p.m.
Thank you. Members, you've heard the motion. All in favor of the 4-line Barto amendment to House Bill 2310, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. And the bill is amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 2310 as amended receive a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, members. You've heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none. Amy, will you call the roll?
Aye.
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 Just briefly, I want to thank the sponsor for working on the bill with all of the stakeholders, and over the last couple years, it's been a big lift, I know, to get it done, and appreciate the camaraderie that we've had at the end in order to satisfy some of the concerns. Appreciate all the testimony. It's a very complicated thing that we're doing, and I'm looking forward to making sure that we have these on the market for Arizona patients and that they can benefit from lower cost treatments. And with that, I vote aye.
6 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Thank you. Members, by a vote of 6 ayes, 0 nay, 1 not voting, you've given House Bill 2310 as amended a due pass recommendation.
Madam Chairman and committee members, thank you so much. And Madam Chairman, thank you again for working with me on this bill today. Thank you.
and we will finish up